What if I told you there's a piece of software out there that claims it can build a detailed personality profile just from the sound of your voice? It's called the NVoice Profiler, and today we're going to dive into its very strange and, pretty fascinating world. So here is the big question, right? Can the frequencies in your voice, totally separate from the words you're actually saying, really tell someone about your deepest personality traits, your emotional state, and maybe even your physical health? Let's find out. Okay, to start, take a look at this. This is what's called a vocal print. Think of it like a visual map of voice frequencies. And this one belongs to the actor Christian Bale, captured during that now infamous expletive-filled rant on a movie set. Now, looking at this, you'd think the chart would just be screaming with rage, right? Well, here's the twist. According to the NVoice manual, the analysis showed something completely different. The dominant color wasn't red, for anger, but green, which supposedly means purpose and planning. So the manual's jaw-dropping conclusion, the entire outburst was a publicity stunt. I mean, how on earth could a program even begin to make a claim like that? To understand that, we need to pull back the curtain and really look at what the NVoice Profiler actually is and what its creators say it can do. So, at its core, the Noise Profiler is a program that records a sample of your voice and then analyzes the frequencies inside it. The key thing here is that it's not listening to what you say, but how you say it. It just ignores the words to focus on the underlying sounds. And from this, it claims it can generate insightful information about a person's entire life and purpose. And here it is. This is the program itself. It was designed by a woman named Sherry Edwards. She wanted to see if there was hidden information that could be pulled from the frequencies of sound. The process is pretty simple. You just talk into a microphone and it spits out a chart, just like the one we saw for Christian Bale. Okay, so how do you get from a simple bar chart to a super complex personality analysis? Well, according to the manual, the whole system is built on a few key layers of interpretation. So let's break them down. Basically, every single chart is read through 3 different lenses: musical notes, colors, and octaves. Each layer adds another dimension to the reading, and it all starts with the 12 notes of the Western musical scale. So this first layer is the notes. And this is where it gets really wild. The system assigns these incredibly specific emotional and physical characteristics to each one of the 12 musical notes. For example, if your voice has a high concentration of the note C, that's said to relate to your ego and your leadership qualities. A lot of D might suggest a need for self-approval or even issues with your digestion. And G is apparently associated with being a game player and, get this, neurotransmitters. As you can see, it's a really detailed and very specific system. All right, so on top of the notes, we've got the next layer, color. The program assigns one of 4 colors to the frequencies it picks up, and each of those colors corresponds to a specific personality archetype. You've got yellow, which represents the logical lawyer type. Red is the action-oriented fireman. Green, which we saw with Christian Bale, is the planning farmer. And blue is the emotional, empathetic minister. So you can start to see how a high green C note would be interpreted very, very differently than a high red C. And the final layer, that would be the octave. So the vertical position of any note on the chart supposedly reveals the perspective behind it. The lower octaves are seen as instinctual, maybe control-based, while the higher octaves move into the emotional and even go up to what the manual literally calls fantasy or non-reality. Okay, so we've got notes, colors, and octaves. I know, that's a lot to take in. So let's see how this all comes together in a really fascinating case study from the manual, Princess Diana. This vocal print was taken from that famous interview where Diana was asked if she ever saw herself becoming queen, and she famously replied no, and said that a lot of people in the royal establishment just saw her as a non-starter. So, according to the manual, the most crucial part of this analysis is what's missing. You can see the notes for C, which is ego, A for spirituality, and B for connection. They're almost non-existent. The interpretation? That her sense of self-power was lacking. The analysis also points out that the chart just seems to kind of drift without a strong start or finish, which they say suggests a lack of direction in her life at that point. And the manual's summary here is, well, it's pretty striking. It concludes that while she may have lacked certain strengths, according to her chart, if she'd just been surrounded by people who appreciated her, she could have truly fulfilled that role as queen of the people. But it's not just about the individual notes either. The overall visual pattern of the chart gets interpreted literally too. So, for example, take a look at these 2 charts. On the left,
you've got a chart that's all scattered. On the right, one that's much more focused and cohesive.
Now, this comparison illustrates another pretty incredible rule from the manual. That scattered chart on the left, which is of Jerry Sandusky, is described as having a separation of perspectives, and the manual suggests that this can indicate untruths. In stark contrast, the cohesive chart on the right, from the singer Linda Ronstadt, is interpreted as being focused and direct. So, when you put all of these layers together, the notes, the colors, the octaves, and even the visual patterns, you get what the systems fans see as a really detailed map of the human psyche. The fundamental belief that's driving all of this is that your voice isn't just for talking. It's a direct reflection of your internal state, a kind of sonic map of your body's energy, your emotional patterns, and your entire psychological framework. And all of that leaves us with one final lingering question. Whether you believe this is a powerful diagnostic tool or maybe just junk science, it does force you to wonder, if your voice truly is a map, what secrets would be written on yours?